Hello students, welcome back to our chapter Reproduction Animals, and today we will discuss first section plants. Students, firstly we will discuss the structure of a flower. Now a flower, it is having main four whorls. First one is called calyx, corolla, androecium and gynoecium. Now these apples, these are the outermost whorl of the flower and these are green in color, and these sepals, they form the calyx part of the flower. Now petals, they are the attractive colored portion of the flower and they form the corolla portion of the flower. Androecium, it is the male reproductive part of flower and it consists of stamens, which are the male units of the flower. Now each stamen, it bears a long slender stalk which is called the filament. Now I will show you this diagram. Now in this diagram you can see that this is the androecium part of the flower which is called which is formed of stamens, and again this stamen, it is formed of two portions. The upper portion, it is the bilobed part which is called the anther, and this is the pollen bearing part of the stamen, and the lowermost portion, it is called the filament. Now this anther, it produces thousands of dusty pollen grains, and these pollen grains, they are actually the male gametes or male cells, male sex cells of the plant body. Now gynoecium, this portion, it is the innermost whorl of the flower and it is known as the gynoecium. And students, actually it is the female reproductive part of the flower, and this gynoecium, it is also known as the pistil. This gynoecium, it mainly forms of three parts. The lowermost part, it is known as the ovary, and the part next to ovary, it is known as the stigma, and it is known as the style, and then the uppermost part of this androecium part, this gynoecium part, it is known as the stigma. Now this ovary portion, it bears ovules, and these ovules, these are actually the female gamete cells, or they are also known as the egg cells. Now at one end of this ovary, there is a small opening which is known as the micropyle. Now students, some flowers, they do not have a pistil part, means they do not have a female reproductive part, and we are having some flowers which are not having this male reproductive part. So such flowers which are having only one reproductive part, they are known as the unisexual flowers, and the examples of these flowers, these are like maize, bottle gourd, pumpkin and bitter gourd. Now students, we are having some flowers which are having both reproductive parts, means which are having both pistil as well as this stamen part. So these kind of flowers which are having both reproductive parts, means which are having both male as well as female reproductive part, they are known as the bisexual flowers. And examples of these bisexual flowers, these are the rose, china rose and lily. So it is all about the structure of a flower. Now students, we will discuss our next topic which is known as the pollination. Now what is pollination? Pollination, it is actually the transference of pollen grains from the anther to the stigma part of the flower. And this pollination, it is actually the first step in the sexual reproduction of flowering plants. Now students, we are having two types of pollination. One kind of pollination, it is known as the self pollination, and other kind of pollination, it is known as the cross pollination. Now I will show you this self pollination and cross pollination through this diagram. Now students, in this diagram you can see that when the pollen, it is transferred from the anthers to the stigma of the same flower, means this flower, it is having both reproductive parts, stamens as well as pistil. Pistil means stigma part is also present. So when the pollen grains, they are transferred from anthers to the stigma of the same flower, then this kind of pollination, it is a type of self pollination. And as well as when the anthers, they are transferred from when the pollen grains, they are transferred from anthers to the stigma of the another flower, but both the flowers, they should be present on same plant. So it is also a kind of self-pollination. Understood, students? Means when the pollen grains, they are transferred from anther to the stigma of another flower, but both the flowers, they should be present on same plant. It is also a kind of self pollination. And when the anthers, they are transferred from one flower to another flower of another plant, but both the plant, they should be of species, then this is a kind of cross pollination. So it is all about pollination and cross pollination. Now the first condition for process of self pollination is that both anthers and stigmas, they should mature at the same time, because if both they are mature at the same time, then the anthers, they will be easily transferred to the stigma. And examples of these flowers, they are like these plants, they are like wheat, barley, and oat and peach. Now self-pollination, it occurs in some flowers even before they open. Means before the opening of the flowers, self-pollination, it occurs in between the flower. Then some species of these plants where self-pollination occurs before the opening of the flower, they are like pansy, balsam, wood sorrel and sage. Now examples of cross pollinating flowers, they are like means in this cross pollination, the flowers, both the anthers and stigmas, they mature at different times, and they are having a barrier which prevents self pollination in them. So this kind of cross pollination, it occurs in plants just like apple, date palm, willow and common primrose. They are the examples of cross pollinating plants. Now students, for the process of cross pollination, there are some external agents like water, wind, insects, which carry the pollen grains from one plant to another plant. So it means most of the flowers, they are pollinated either by wind or insects or water. So firstly we will discuss the pollination which is carried with the help of wind. So such kind of pollination which is carried with the help of wind, it is called wind pollination, as well as it is known as the anemophily. And in these wind pollinated flowers, the pollen grains, they should be very light and they should be very dusty, so that they can be easily blown with the help of by the breeze. With the help of wind, they can be easily blown. And wind pollinated flowers, they should produce pollens in large amounts, because when the wind, it carries the pollen grains along with it, so a large number of pollen grains, they will be exhausted or they will be damaged on the way. So in this way, these flowers, they should produce a large number of pollen grains, so that at least some of the pollen grains, they will reach the stigma of the flowers. Now the flowers of these plants, they are very small and they are very inconspicuous, and they do not have large showy petals. And inconspicuous means they are very small, so they do not have large showy petals, and even they do not produce scent or nectar. So the stigmas of wind pollinating flowers, they are very long and they are feathery, and sometimes they are hanging out of the plant body, so that they can easily catch the pollen grains. So it is all about the wind pollination. Now our next type of pollination, it is called the insect pollination. This insect pollination, it is called entomophily, and these insect pollinated flowers, they should produce sticky or spiny pollen grains, so that these pollen grains, they can be attached easily with the stigmas. And then the when this insect's body, it brushes against the stigmas of another flower, then these pollen grains, if they are sticky, then they will be easily transferred to the flower. Then insect pollinated flowers, they are having attractive petals, they should produce scent, and they should so that they can attract the insects. Now the corolla part of these flowers, which consist of the petals, corolla means petal part of the flower, they play an important role in attracting the insects. So that's why these insect pollinated flowers, they are having attractive petals or attractive corolla. Now the example of this kind of flower which are pollinated with the help of insects, they are just like jasmine, sunflower, fig and Rafflesia. So students, you all have to learn the examples of the all the wind pollinated plants and insect pollinated plants and water pollinated plants also. Now we will discuss the water pollination. Now water pollination, it is mainly seen in submerged aquatic plants such as Hydrilla and Vallisneria. And submerged plants are those plants which are half below the surface of water and somewhat above the surface of water. And these plants, they produce small, colorless and inconspicuous flowers. And both Hydrilla and Vallisneria plant, they can be either male or female. Means these plants, they are either bearing only male flowers or they are bearing only female flowers. But Hydrilla flower, it can also bear flowers with both the reproductive parts. Now in Vallisneria, the buds of female flowers, they develop under the water, and when the stalks of these developing flowers, they elongate, then these flowers slowly and slowly they are coming out of the water. Then these flowers, they will open when they get mature, then they will open and then they float on the surface of water. Now the male flowers, they float on the surface of water after getting detached with the from the parent plant. So in this way, because they are detached from the parent plant, so they are carried by water currents to the stigma of the faraway stigma of the female flowers at faraway places, and this results in pollination. Now after pollination, the stalk of female flower, it becomes coiled and pulls the flower under water where the fruit develops. So in this way, this water pollination, it occurs, and this kind of pollination, it is also known as hydrophily. It is also known as hydrophily. So it is all about water pollination. Now students, these are the three ways of natural pollination: insect pollination, water pollination and wind pollination. Now we will discuss about artificial pollination. Now this artificial pollination, it is done in those cases where we want to achieve desirable features. So in this way, this artificial pollination, the plants, they may be resistant to a certain disease, but means in artificial pollination, suppose we are having a plant, one plant which is resistant to a certain disease, but it is not producing a high yield. So through artificial pollination, both these characters we can get in one plant. So in this way, this artificial pollination, it is very important and helpful in achieving, in getting new varieties with desirable features. Now in artificial pollination, if we take the example, then we will start with two varieties with one desired characters. That means these desired characters, they are selected in those two, but the condition is that both these two varieties of plant, they should belong to the same species. Now for artificial pollination, now we are having two varieties. So in one plant, where the stamens of the flowers of one variety, they are removed before the anther matures. Means if the anther, it get matures, then the pollen grains, they will naturally they will fall on the stigma of the plant. But here we have to remove the stamens of the flowers of one variety, and the gynosium of that flower, it should be covered with the bag so that natural pollination, it cannot occur. Now pollen grains from the second variety, they are collected and brushed on to the stigma of the first variety, where we have removed the stamen. In that variety, we have to pollen grains, we have to fall on the stigma of that variety. Now the flowers of the first variety, they are again covered with a bag to avoid pollen from other resources. So this natural reproductive, it is then allowed to take its own course. Now in this way, when the anthers, they are fallen on the stigma of the desirable plant variety, then after falling of stigma on the after falling of pollen grains on the stigma of the variety, then natural reproductive process of pollination, then it will take place. So after this process of pollination, we will get a new variety by artificial means. So this process of obtaining a new variety by artificial means, it is called hybridization. So it is very important process. What is hybridization? hybridization means process of obtaining a new variety by artificial means. Here students, you have seen that we have done the pollination, but this pollination, it is not occurring naturally. It is done with the help of done artificially. Artificially means it is man-made pollination. So in this way, this new variety it is obtained by artificial means, so it is called hybridization, and the new variety which is produced here, it is known as the hybrid. So nowadays we have developed many hybrid varieties, including those of rice, wheat, maize, cotton and sugarcane, in order to make these varieties resistant to diseases. So it is all about the artificial pollination. Now students, we will discuss the process of fertilization. Now each pollen grain means it is a male gamete cell of the plant body. So each pollen grain, it contains a vegetative cell and two male gametes. So once a pollen grain, so you can see in this diagram, once a pollen grain it reaches to the stigma, then only one of the pollen grain it is able to produce its pollen tube, and remaining all the pollen grains, they will get disintegrate at the stigma part. So this only one pollen grain it is able to produce this long tube, which is known as the pollen tube. So this pollen tube, because this pollen grain it contains a one vegetative cell and two male gametes, so this pollen tube it carries these two male gametes to the ovary of the plant body, and through this it reaches inside there is one opening I have already told you, which is known as a micropyle. So through this micropylar and this pollen tube it enters the ovary, and in this way in the ovary, because ovules they are present, so one male gamete it fuses with the egg cell. These ovules, these are actually the egg cells. So one male gamete it fuses with this egg cell in the in the ovule, and giving rise to zygote. When one male gamete it fuses with the egg cell, then this process it is called fertilization, and after the fusion of male gamete and egg cell, the new cell it is obtained, and that new cell it is known as the zygote. And the another male gamete it fuses with other cells which is present in this ovule, and then these other cells, the male gamete, when it fuses with other cells, then it gives rise to the food store of the seed, which is known as the endosperm portion. So in this way these two male gametes they are fused, one with the egg cell and other with the other cells which are present within the ovule. Now what will happen after the fertilization, and those changes which happen after fertilization, they are known as the post fertilization changes. Now after fertilization, the ovule it develops into the seed, means ovule in which the male gamete it fuses with the egg cell, that ovule it develops into the seed, and inside the seed I have already told that fusion of male gamete and female gamete it give rise to a cell which is called zygote. So inside that seed there is one cell which is called zygote, then that zygote it grows embryo, and the ovary part it forms the fruit portion. So the rest of the parts of the flower, just like stamens, petals and stigmas and styles, all these parts they get shrivel. Shrivel means they get disappear. And the sepal, sometimes they may persist after fertilization. As you can see in case of unripe fruit part, just like guava, just like apple, students, you have seen that some green small leaf dried form, these green leaf like structures they are present along with the fruit. So these are actually the sepal parts. Then the unripe fruit it is usually green and tastes sour or bitter to repel fruit eating animals. So that's why the unripe fruits they are sour and they are usually green, so that they can repel the fruit eating animals. Then afterwards when the fruit gets ripened, then the seed gets mature, and then it attracts the fruit eating animals, and these fruit eating animals along with the fruit they also take these seeds along with them, and then they disperse those some other places, and when the conditions they become favorable, then these seeds they germinated, and then from those seeds another new plant it will rise. Then embryo. Now I have told you that inside the seed, the zygote, it grows into an embryo. Now this embryo, it actually consists of three portions. First part, it is called radicle, second one is called plumule, and third one is called cotyledon. Now this, from this radical part of embryo which is present inside the seed, it gives rise to root system, and this plumule part, it gives rise to shoot system, and this cotyledon part, it provides the food, or it provides the nutrition to the germinating seed. So in this way, from this embryo of seed, a new plant along with root, shoot, and this endosperm, it will rise. Now students, what is meant by the germinating stage? Means when the this embryo, it lies dormant in the seed. Means firstly, when the conditions, they are not favorable, then this embryo, it is in an inactive form. Then that stage of embryo, when it is an inactive form, that is known as the stage of dormancy. But on getting favorable conditions, now this dormant embryo inside the seed, it becomes active, and then the conditions, they are becoming, when the conditions are becoming favorable, then this embryo part, it gets active, and then it means the some chemical changes, they start taking place inside the embryo, and it means the germination of the seed, it takes place. So it is all about the post fertilization changes. So students, we have completed our sexual reproduction in plants. Now we will discuss in the next video, I will discuss sexual reproduction in animals. So until that, you have to revise all the topics. Okay, thank you.